Hey, what's up team? It's Sherman here from Geek Psychology. This video is on the Enneagram Type 4, re-envisioned. If you haven't watched the other videos, please do that, because this video is actually going to be a little different. And you won't really understand why unless you've seen the other videos. I've explained the other ones as different kingdoms within this Enneagram world. But the Type 4, I couldn't put them into an isolated kingdom. I just couldn't do it. So I've re-envisioned them as this lost race from a collective conscious, that like this kind of hive mind type species. So before I get into connecting all these pieces together, I want to just run through this list of like kind of the technical terms for the Enneagram Type 4. And then after that, I'll get into a little story about it all that really puts it together and gives it that fantasy feel. I guess that science fiction feel as well. And there's just so much. I've written notes in front of me so that I can read it. So sorry if my eyes kind of jot up a little more than usual. So first of all, the idealization is I am unique. I am elite and special in some way. Next, the essence is joy. The holy idea is origin. The idea that like we're all connected and there's no true difference between everybody. My hair is jumping. And the holy path is equanimity, kind of balance of emotions. The chief feature is melancholy, kind of this sadness. Passion is envy. Talking style is lamentation. Lamentation. My English sucks. Basically sad stories, lamenting about all the woes in their lives and stuff like that. The trap is authenticity. The defense mechanism is introjection, kind of absorbing other people's emotions and putting yourself with them in that emotional aspect. Just taking it all on, basically. Avoidance is feeling lost. Dichotomy is analytic and disoriented. And the subtypes are self-preservation is dauntless. The social is shame, and the sexual is competition. So that. Let me just give a quick idea of what a 4 kind of feels like. They're like really idealistic, deeply feeling people. They're empathetic. They're melancholic, like I said before. They're dramatic. They're moody and often self-absorbed. This feels a lot like introverted feeling. It's just trying to understand all these different pieces of emotion, all these different shades of emotion. Not shades of gray, please no. So they have their ups and downs, and they're always focused on like, well, what is my experience of this? And it gets pretty heavy. It gets pretty deep a lot of times. So now finally getting to this species, this fantasy aspect. I envision it like this. There's this mother species, or father species, I guess, whatever it is. This parent, okay, that is kind of like controlling all these other people within it. Kind of like a hive mind, this collective consciousness. This comes up in a lot of games and comics and stuff like that too. Like even like the Zelnaga and the Zerg. Unity from Rick and Morty, which I'll talk about at the end of this video. There's just, I don't know, Gaia. There are tons of different races that do this, but basically it's this hive mind. Everybody shares the same brain waves, the same thoughts and emotions and are working together as one big entity. But the fours that are on this Enneagram world have been cut off. They've been abandoned in this cataclysmic way from their higher species, their entire species basically, and placed on this world. And because of that, they're always searching for a way to get back, for a way to reconnect to the parent that has abandoned them, to regain that love, essentially. I said their avoidance is feeling lost, and this is because they feel empty. They feel cut off from the greater whole. And it is painful. Maybe not physically, but it could be physically. I mean, there are a lot of, I guess, fours who self-mutilate and stuff like that too, from what I hear. So there's kind of this physical expression of pain as well, but emotionally they're just like, what do I do? You know, I've been completely separated from what makes me a part of this larger picture, and now I've been abandoned. I'm on my own. So you can imagine that they're just going up and down, mainly down in this emotional roller coaster. And they, in a relationship, they finally kind of have that feeling of like, this is where I belong. This is, now I know, now I have something to connect to. And they start to imagine themselves and understand themselves as the relationship between the other person and themselves. And this is when they absorb a lot of those emotions and feelings and take on all that stuff. Unfortunately, when they've done that, when they're in a relationship, they're kind of a little stressed out at the start, probably. You know, there's this high emotional attachment as well. It's good feeling attached too, but they're also kind of stressed out because it's a new experience, right? And so they do everything they can to help this other person, and they treat them as good as they can to the best of their ability. And then eventually they kind of get complacent with it, and they're like, well, you're not that parent. You're not going to give me that same connection that I had with that greater species, that collective consciousness. And then they break it off. And then they go look for another relationship, or they just mourn and regret breaking off that past relationship. And this kind of connects to the holy idea origin, where the essence of life and of who I am, the true connection to everything, can't be where I am. I'm not where that is. Because their species is not on this world, according to their story that they've told themselves, right? And by it not being where I am, if they're in a relationship, they're not gonna feel that real connection. They're gonna be like, something's wrong about this. If they're, at work or doing whatever on this adventure, it's not there. The true essence, the true answers to everything cannot be there. And so they're always searching. It's this endless emotional search for essence, for origin. And this gives them that melancholic attitude, right? Because they're just lost. They're constantly like, where do I go? What do I do? And nothing that they do is ever quite good enough to to be brought back into that collective consciousness. They're always trying to show how unique and how special and how just good they are in their very own way, so that hopefully the parent of this species, the highest, the overlord or whatever, is going to see that and be like, okay, we can re-assimilate you. You're welcome back into this species. We'll take you home and you can be part of all of us again. So they're just constantly looking for what makes them special and unique and elite in that sense. In order to have equanimity, in order to have this emotional balance, they need to grow up. They need to be more mature. And if you're a 4 and you heard me say that and cringed a little bit, I'm sorry, but I didn't sugarcoat it. It's in order to have emotional balance, you need to have maturity. And when you have matured and when you have more experiences under your belt and more knowledge about yourself, and you've kind of balanced out that roller coaster, then you can just let go. You don't need to be constantly creating this drama and this emotional up and down, right? Which you secretly love, you know? It's like in this fantasy world, they're constantly trying to show other people how difficult it is. They're lamenting about all this stuff. They're being like, well, I was abandoned, I was cut off, I'm left here on this world, I'm on my own, I don't belong here, I don't belong anywhere, I don't belong with you, and you know, I'm different from everybody else in some way. And that makes you feel alive when you're going up and down, when you're experiencing all this range of emotion. Like, the deeper you go, the darker it gets, the more scars you get, the more you can appreciate the few moments that you feel really good. So that contrast kind of keeps you feeling alive. And when you don't need that contrast as much, when you just settle a bit, then you can kind of surrender yourself and really experience your essence, which is joy. Because you will be happy when you fully realize that, you know, I may have been cut off. I'm not part of this collective consciousness, but I am actually connected to everything in the world, in the universe. You know, you can't do one thing without it affecting something else. Everything is connected. So in that way, you are connected to origin. It's all there. Everything's connected. And you don't need to be let back in to this hive mind, this collective consciousness. The dichotomy is analytic and disoriented. Disoriented is very well shown, I think, through this metaphor, because they've been abandoned. They don't really feel like they're part of this world, and they're not really feeling connected to everybody else. But analytic is kind of the other side of that, as a dichotomy would suggest. But they're the ones that are, instead of just kind of being lost and wandering around, they're the ones that are going inward into their mental zone and trying to actually figure it out. They're like being more scientific and more logical about it. But deep down, it's because they're trying to find out, you know, how to get back in, how to be accepted back into this collective consciousness. And deep down under that robotic barrier, I guess, that robotic exterior, is tons of emotions and disorientation and just this feeling of lost. That's kind of boiling, ready to kind of expose itself. The subtypes, self-preservation is dauntless. Just, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I'm just going to get it. I'm going to make everything happen and show the world that I am unique and special. The social is shame. They feel shame, obviously, because they've been cut off. They've been abandoned. They've been left on this other world to wander endlessly. So of course they're gonna feel shitty about it, right? And the sexual is competition. They're always trying to kind of one up the other people because they want to show how much better they are so that their uniqueness is more emphasized, I guess. What else? The defense mechanism, introjection, absorbing these emotions as your own, really kind of shows how sad and how lost they feel. Because they themselves identify with those negative emotions a lot of times. So when somebody else is feeling down, feeling bad, they're happy to identify with that. Because they're like, oh, this is my realm in that sense. I'm not saying that every 4 is sad and melancholic, but there's an up and down, like I said. They can be very happy at times, and they can be very joyous and peaceful in that sense. But it's not maintained very well. It drops right back down and then tries to balance out and goes up and down. So they've been abandoned by their collective consciousness. This mother race or whatever has severed those connections. And they're actually kind of addicted to that feeling because they've been raised in that. Like, that is who they see themselves as, right? Like, I'm part of this species, I'm part of this collectiveness. And when it's cut off, they're just like, well, I need that back. I need to get it back, or I'm not complete, I'm not whole. And it's extremely wearing on them. It makes them feel down quite often. And dramatic and moody and all that stuff. But there's this empathy as well with them, because when other people are walking around and like they see those other people in whatever mood they are, they realize that that person is not part of the collective race, right? That larger picture. And that person as well is lost in some way. But why doesn't that person feel as down about it as I do, right? So there's this kind of like envy that comes about it because, you know, I'm constantly searching for this. I can't figure it out, and this person's okay with it. Why? There must be something wrong with me. I must be flawed in some way, and then I have to research and refigure this out again and again and again. And when I start to figure that out, then it must not really be that. It can't be where I am. It's a constant idea of the mother race, the overlord or whatever, is not here on this world. So how could it possibly be that? But removing the 4 from that idea of trying to return to the higher species, I need a name for that, trying to return to their own collective species and just realizing that they're part of the universe and so they are all connected is what is going to give them that peace of mind, that joy, just from surrendering to the idea that, like, hey, we are actually all connected. I'm special in my own way. And it's just, there's no need to cause all this problem and to endlessly search for something that doesn't actually exist in that sense. So let me read right now from Rick and Morty. Okay, if you have not seen Rick and Morty, I suggest you just watch it anyway. But season 2, episode 3, it was an episode about unity, and unity is basically this hive mind that kind of takes over other races and is trying to populate the universe. I don't want to explain too much in case you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, I guess just skip this part anyway. So she writes a letter to Rick, and it says, "Rick, forgive me for doing this in notes. I'm not strong enough to do it in persons. I realize now that I'm attracted to you for the same reason I can't be with you. You can't change. And I have no problem with that, but it clearly means I have a problem with myself. I'm sure there's no perfect version of me. I'm sure I'll just unify species after species and never really be complete. But I know how it goes with us. I lose who I am and become part of you. Because in a strange way, you're better at what I do without even trying. Yours and nobody else's, Unity." That's some shit right there. That is intense. Especially from a cartoon, right? But this kind of summarizes the idea of 4 just with its envy and being lost and absorbing other people and their emotions and still and then breaking up with it, like breaking off the ties and still feeling sad about it, but like, yeah, it's just so connected to the type 4, at least for my understanding of it. So thank you very much for watching. The next video is going to be on the Enneagram type 5. This is next Friday. Please stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, comments, if you're a 4, let me know. Kind of want to bounce some ideas off you. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck, have fun. Peace.